Heavenly Father, today we put on the full armor to protect us against attack. We put on the belt of truth to protect against lies and deception. We put on the breastplate of righteousness to protect our hearts from the temptations. We put the gospel of peace on our feet to walk in your light, peace and freedom with the Holy Spirit. We rebuke anxious thoughts. We take up your shield of faith for protection to block and destroy all the darts and threats thrown at us by the enemy. We put on the helmet of salvation to cover our minds and thoughts, reminding us that we are children of a mighty King. We are forgiven, set free, saved by the blood of Jesus. We take up the sword of the Spirit, your living word, that has the power to demolish strongholds and is sharper than any double-edged sword. We come to you, Lord, in prayer daily. In Jesus' mighty name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
What's up, you guys? Welcome to The Imagination. I'm your host, Emma, and today I'm honored to bring back the bravest father I know and whistleblower of all things, Maximus Inc., Jack Pendergrass. I met Jack on Twitter a couple years ago and was instantly captivated by the content he was exposing about a company I had never heard of before meeting him, Maximus Inc. What I didn't know at the time was that Jack's passion behind exposing this mega corporation stemmed from losing parental rights to his daughter in the secret family court system back in 2013, 2014. When this devastating and corrupt event happened to Jack, he didn't just settle on an unfair outcome. He took it upon himself to better understand the system that trafficked his daughter out of his hands and stumbled on the umbrella company responsible for the corruption we see not only in the family court system, but also within every three-letter agency and really within all systems related to collecting data on humans globally. Maximus Inc. is the shadow company that people still don't have on their radar and should. And Jack is someone you need to be following and connecting with if you haven't already. He's one of only a few people in the world really unraveling the deep and dark rabbit hole that is Maximus Inc. Maximus is the puzzle piece we didn't know we needed in this giant puzzle of deception. It's been a while since Jack was on, and if you haven't watched Jack's first episode, definitely do that before or after this show to hear his personal testimony, as well as an introduction to Maximus Inc. And I'm going to have that all linked in the show notes. Jack has become a dear friend and confidant and someone who is an absolute wealth of knowledge. He will humbly say that he's more of a student than a teacher, but I believe him to be an authority on so many topics, and I'm thankful and grateful he has chosen to go public with this important information and share his wealth of knowledge on Maximus and many other topics. On today's show, we will continue to reveal his most recent findings about Maximus Inc., how they tie into a trending topic, Roe versus Wade, and the intertwining of Maximus Inc. to many of the secret societies we know about today. This episode is going to be spicy and jam-packed with information, and one you may want to listen to more than once. Gear up to have your mind blown, everybody. I'm honored to have back on the show brave whistleblower, selfless father, man of God, artist, independent researcher, and my dear, dear friend, the one, the only, Jack Pendergrass. Jack, thanks for being here with me today.
Thank you, Em. Thank you for the humbling intro.
Oh, you're welcome. Oh my goodness. I'm so happy to have you back. I get so many people that still are commenting on your last YouTube video or on Twitter. Where is Jack? When's Jack going to come back? What's Jack up to? What have you been up to? Catch us up, first of all, on what's been up since we talked last, because a lot's changed on the social media front and, you know, with some of the things that you've been dabbling in.
Yeah. I mean, you know, we both know I'm still perma-banned from Twitter, you know, so
Yeah, what happened?
You know,
For
some time
people who
ago,
might not know, what happened with Twitter?
you know, I never got a reasonable explanation from Twitter about what I did or didn't do. I know as you know, like I started tying in a lot of information, a lot of, you know, dates with people, you know, in relation to Maximus, including the Biden regime, which, you know, we're seeing in full force now.
Yeah.
And I knew it was going to happen, you know, when and if it did happen, that Sleepy Joe became whatever you want to call him now, president. I will never refer to that man as the president of the United States, me personally. But yeah, even before that though, like I started tying in, names, dates, people, organizations, and got a lot of strikes even before I was banned. So with that, I went back to Facebook, kind of as a default, and then was invited to Telegram, to several good channels, including yours, the Standby Survivors, which is one of my favorites, of course.
And Jack is one of our admins, so he is posting on our Telegram, so you can find him there also, and that's linked down below.
Yeah, very thankful for that too. I'm also an admin on WikiLeaks on Telegram. I'm also part of the ADN, the American Digital News Channel. And for those of you, who may be watching this, like, check those channels out. They are just, of course, with Emma, and WikiLeaks with Alexia and Rick, like, and ADN with Pamela and Tony, and just a whole score of really, really good people. Like, I'm thankful that I was welcomed into the channel, not just the channels, but the groups of people, like, just tremendous. And I did have a Maximus disclosure channel, which I temporarily, shut down, but I'm going to be revamping that and try to take everybody from the beginning of Maximus to where we're at now. I think that will further increase, the pertinence of what we're looking at, the systems that they've created, beginning in the 60s and 70s up to where we're at now. And if you don't think they are a part of your life, that's what they want you to think, because they are. Whether or not you want to admit it or even like it, they don't care either way. So that's where I've been, as far as like sharing things on social media. So there again, your channel, Standby Survivors, WikiLeaks, American Digital News, ADN. I still have Instagram, but that's reserved for just my artwork. And then, I have 2 Facebook accounts because I was banned for 3 or 4 years on Facebook too. So, it's
everywhere, Jack. Oh my goodness.
Yeah, we're going back and forth. Like, what can you do?
I know it's tough navigating that. I've had my own frustrations getting, banned off different platforms, and it's frustrating when you have information. And I get what you're saying about trying to construct such a big picture in a way that people don't feel lost when they read one thing about it, because that's really easy. It's hard to take any concept that's going on in the world and sum it up for people, or to have tons of information and say, you've had a channel for 6 months and somebody joins 6 months later. For them to go back and read 6 months of information is tough. So sometimes people walk in on a conversation or on a channel, and I know the frustrations myself with, trying to post a story long-term, or an idea, or a theology, or a story, or just a structure in the world. And, people, they don't know how to construct it because they come in and they just see a little piece of it, so I totally get that. For people who might be new to, watching since you've been on last, Maximus is a really big idea, big company. It's a really big, it's a big deal that people need to know about. And I know that there's no simple way to sum it up, but for people who might not know you, Jack, who didn't tune in last time or who are new, I'd love for you to just talk for a couple minutes about your past and how you stumbled on Maximus. And then if you can, maybe give a big picture of what Maximus is, and then we'll dive into some details that are pertinent for today.
Yeah, that sounds good. Yeah. So I became involved in Maximus unknowingly, right? And that was through the family court system and child support. And and a big part of it was just me being naive about what Maximus was and just being uneducated in general about, the significance of this company, this one company. Um, so I began, I've been studying them for a long time. I can't even pinpoint a certain date when I started studying them. But it was through child support and through Title 4D funding. Um, for those of you who are unaware of what they say child support is, it's welfare recovery. That was the original premise for child support, right? The state expends X amount of dollars for a mother and a child on welfare. Well, they were supposed to be recouping that through child support. But that was never what was intended. That's just what they said, right? So the intention was, and now you're seeing it in full force, and you will see it more enforced now that Roe versus Wade has been re-adjudicated and struck down. Child support recovery is going to go through the roof because there are going to be more children to fund the system, right? So how I became aware of Maximus was just through a simple letterhead, simple change of address on an envelope I received from quote unquote child support services. So it went from Child Support Services of Tennessee to Maximus Child Support Services. Just something that simple and something as seemingly insignificant as just a letterhead on an envelope. That's what got the ball going for me. So that's how I began researching Maximus. Was just that little snippet, So I found that, and then discovered 4D child support. And Title 4D was originally created it was signed into law in 1975. Which, if we know anything about government, quote unquote government, we know that the system was in place well before then, right? It just took a matter of their bureaucratic red tape BS for it to actually be enacted. So that was under the 1975 Social Security Act. So Title 4D was in place then, along with Title 4E for foster care. And so there was another significant change in child welfare care, child support in 1984. And for those of you who don't know, and it takes a lot of time to research this stuff and correlate dates and people and agencies. Significant changes in the economy. If you do the research, you'll see it all lines up, right? So 1984 was the next significant date. So that's when we see Maximus really starting to emerge. Let's see what else. So a general overview of Maximus is they're quote unquote a governmental services corporation, and in other words, that's who the government they contract with to help aid the government administer their programs, whatever they may be. So but the evidence is overwhelming about what Maximus does, how they've influenced like literally every facet of law, not just it's in their bread and butter is family law and child support, right? But they view everyone as human capital. That's how they make their money. They're the haves and we are the have-nots. But Maximus is also a transnational corporation, and I keep finding countries that they are in, have been in, and are looking to work in, Ireland being the newest one. So Ireland being part of probably upwards of 15 countries that they operate in right now.
Wow.
Yeah, they're I mean, I knew they would flourish under the Biden regime, but I just didn't realize how much so. Like and we really see in 95 and 96 under the Clinton administration where, they were held as a private company initially, right? And their initial contracts when they were first founded were through analyzing the government's programs and trying to make them more efficient. Well, they're using, really high-end math, specifically Bayesian statistics, which was taken from DARPA and applied to child support and welfare. We can get into quite a bit just off of that little snippet of information, right? Let's see, so Maximus pretty much runs the government as we know it. It's not BlackRock. BlackRock and Vanguard are their parent companies, right? They are just the institutional shareholders. But there are several companies that dwarf Vanguard and BlackRock. One being the DTCC, the Depository Trust Clearing Corporation. The DTCC oversees every stock trend or transaction that goes through the NYSE, every single transaction. So Maximus is a huge part of how the DTCC came about, because it all began in like the 1970s as far as the modernization of what we're seeing of like child support and welfare. It's a lot to take in, folks, so bear with us.
It is.
Yeah,
It's
that's how
a huge
Yeah.
company. I couldn't believe that after learning from you, when I started seeing your posts on Twitter and just learning more, it still feels so foreign to me, because when I thought I understood Maximus, the broadness of what all it has its, dirty hands in, it blows my mind, because I'm thinking, how does this company exist? And it's literally involved in everything that I do. It's involved in everything that everybody does. And I've never heard of it. I've heard of BlackRock and Vanguard, and we know the three-letter agencies and a lot of these other corporations that we would consider to be not in favor of wanting what's most beneficial for humanity globally. But Maximus is right up there with these companies, and it's one that's not talked about on the same detail level and broadness and scope, and just through society and through what people are talking about.
Yeah, and I was just taking a look at like some of their tracking their stocks a little bit. Now in terms of like what kind of profits they post, they're still pretty small. But I realized their divestiture is so immense that the main corporation here in the United States is not going to post huge profits. They're still a billion, like almost a $4 billion plus company as far as like their profits. Still pretty immense, right? But
yeah,
my guess is they intentionally throttle back, or they get so much money, and of course then they're like, oh, we need to invest this money elsewhere. So they start a new company, start a subsidiary. That way they avoid tax liabilities and just all kinds of stuff. I think that's how they've functioned for as long as they have. They're 45 years old and they've never posted a negative loss in the company's history. Like, it's always profited. Like, less than 10 years after they were founded, they were posting profits of like 100 million. like what company does that? Unless you're like a giant tech or a biotech company or something like that. So it's just incredible. And to use to quote, what was the fellow's name in Harry Potter? The fellow in the wand shop.
Oh man.
He was talking about Voldemort, and he was like, he did terrible but great things. And that's the best way I can equate Maximus. Everything they do is terrible, but great in terms of the scope.
And we were talking
It's amazing.
Before we started recording about, you go and look on their Twitter page or their website, and everything looks, there's a facade. And I think, a lot of these, you look at the World Economic Forum and it's the same thing. You look at these corporations, these companies, these nonprofits, whatever it is, agencies, forums, and you look at their content and think, gosh, those videos look really well done. The voices talking on them are very friendly. You will have nothing and you will be happy. And there's the neuro-linguistic portion of it, that psychology part of it that plays with our unconscious mind, to where we see something that should set off, red alert, red flags in our brain, but the way that it's presented to us, it looks very clean. It looks really pretty how it's shown. It looks very positive. The voices are very friendly. It's written in a way that doesn't seem like it's threatening. And Maximus is definitely one of those companies that presents the information that way. It's like how, you were saying, everything you found and everything you've stumbled on was in plain sight. You didn't have to go digging on the deep web. Like, they have stuff on their website. They have stuff on their Twitter that should be raising red flags. And it's right there in plain view, but it's just the way that it looks. It looks very, it looks nicely curated. The graphics are nice. The videos are nice. It's written nicely. So there's this facade, I think, too, that keeps it off people's radar, that, oh, that company doesn't really look, it doesn't really look important. It just looks like it's a good, wholesome company,
Yeah. And, there's a whole psychology, just like you stated, and like, there's a whole psychology behind that. Let's present to the general population like some of the worst information that you can imagine, but we'll do it in a nice way. Like, it's incredible, and there again, they don't hide this stuff, but I don't think people are looking at it through the correct lens. And it's like, oh, they're helping, the government, run their administration, run these programs, analyze these programs to make them more efficient. Nah, they're making them more efficient at your expense. That's exactly what they're doing, like, and what I mean by that, is, they pretty much run the IRS, the Edgar system, the United States Patent and Trade Office, most importantly, Medicaid and Medicare, and the Social Security Office. So for those of you who don't know what legal child trafficking is, Maximus would be the biggest purveyor of that through the child support, family courts, and foster care systems. The databases for all those originated with Maximus and two other military contractors, Bay Systems and IBM.
Wow.
So,
Why do you think it is that, you noticed it on a letterhead, but I'm sure that could have been very easily, if you wouldn't have looked at that letterhead, it might not have computed in your brain to, think about another company getting involved with what you were going through. Why do you think it is that so many parents in your shoes aren't looking at Maximus just from going through it? Do you think it is because they massage themselves in so well that people don't realize that there's a separate entity working with them? Or do you think that it's hidden so well
That's
that people aren't paying attention to it?
no, you bring up a great point, and I like that's a really great point. They've infiltrated and changed behaviors of parents. You know, you think about it from a psychological standpoint, right? Um, they're going to be much more effective if it, if it if a system is implemented in such a way that you don't notice it until it's too late. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
If it's something shoved in your face just all of a sudden, that's going to throw up a red flag. But it's not if it's slowly implemented, which is what they've done, right? So they've changed. Um, they've indoctrinated people without their knowledge. They've fleeced the Social Security Administration, and the Social Security Administration is well aware of what they do. They're part of it, right? Um, they've helped create classes of citizens. Um, that's a whole conversation in and of itself, right? And that was part of the work they do with the bar. You know, they've created new classifications of citizens, specifically obligor, debtor, parent, father, mother, child. And you have to get into the legal side of things to understand where that comes from, right? You need to get into like Black's Law Dictionary, 4th and 6th editions, and start looking up these terms, because that will help you understand the language that they use in these programs. But yeah, that's a great point. They've massaged. That's an excellent way to put that. They massage themselves into daily life, and part of it too. You take a parent, a single parent, and whether it be man or woman, they're the language is sexist. It's directed at men to tear apart the family unit. That was part of the whole feminism movement. So through high conflict cases, that's how you arrive at Title 40 child support, right? The mother's not going to get services unless you file suit against the father for child support, and that's what it is. It's a lawsuit, right? Anyway, not to jump ahead, but yeah. So you take a parent, and in my case and many other fathers, just wanting to see and spend time with their children, their main concern is paying their child support so they have that time. So it becomes a thing of put your head down, work, pay your child support, and maybe you might get to see your child. That's what they want, and that's what they've done. And that's what they will continue to do. Now that Roe versus Wade has been struck down, you're going to see why I want to clarify this for everyone. I believe in the sanctity of life. I believe that every child has a right to live, God-given right to live. And it's when Roe versus Wade was initially adjudicated, claiming that abortion was a constitutional right, they created an entire industry based on fetal tissue. I don't think that can be argued by anyone. You see fetal tissue, cells, get into the darker side of things I really don't want to do right now, but we know what they do, right? Where am I going with this? Maximus has been part of this since day one, and even before. So I want everybody to start paying attention. I'm not like the end all be all in this research. I've learned from a lot of people. Um, but I like to think I'm being one of the more vocal people, trying to advocate. And I'd like to see Maximus shut down in my lifetime. Doubt it, but I'm hoping.
100%. Now, when you say that with this new ruling of Roe versus Wade, that the benefits are really in Maximus's hands for this decision, explain how that works within through CPS, through the foster care system. How does that feed Maximus, and what are the benefits that Maximus is going to get out of this decision?
So Maximus is, if they haven't already, and I think it's just too early right now to see any immediate results from Roe versus Wade being struck down. But as history proves, the more people you have in a system, and I mean specifically like the child support, welfare, and foster care systems, the more money these agencies are going to get, and the more money the states are going to get, because you're going to see more people on welfare. For the people who don't end up on welfare, you're going to see the foster care system explode because they're going to surrender their parental rights. You're going to see trafficking numbers go through the roof. And I'm not trying to be Debbie Downer, but this is the reality of what we're seeing. Maximus is going to get larger contracts. All these quote unquote foster care child support agencies are going to get huge contracts now, even bigger than the ones that we've seen. And we're talking like, I think when they implemented the child support contract in Hamilton County, and by the way, it was a non-compete child support contract in Hamilton County, which is where I'm at, Tennessee. It wasn't just for Hamilton County, it's for the entire state, right? So they were looking at, it was like a $65 or $70 million contract right off the bat. That's good. That's excluding all the other services that Maximus provides to the state. I'm talking like, fleets. They were running the contract for the fleets for vehicles for the state. Contracting with the Tennessee Bar Association, just all kinds of contracts that these people generate. They create industries where you didn't know there were one, or that you weren't aware that you even needed that business. That's pretty much how they come into being.
Yeah.
They really fueled the entire child support, welfare, foster care system. That's their MO. They prey on the poor. Something to look at is safety net contracts. It's overwhelming how pervasive they are.
Yeah.
It's sickening.
Well, I think that's the, point that in my mind I battle with is, if you're pro-life, okay, we got to win. There's going to be more restrictions on abortion. At the same time, though, there is no improvement in how the alternative system works. So you have the two systems, you have foster care, CPS, you have a way that people think, all right, well, if you take a child to full term and you give birth to it and you don't want it, here's your alternative. We don't want you to abort the baby, but we have a better option for you. And the problem is, it's a double-sided coin with being a catch-22. Both systems are equally as flawed, equally as horrific, and each committing crimes against children. And it's a loss both ways, and that's the part that I think we need to focus on as a society, is addressing both sides. People are so caught up in just the abortion side, And yes, that is, that's how a democracy is run. To me, that's just a win in general when you hand over responsibility to states. That is how our state should be run, is state to state, and having people advocate for what they want in their states, in my opinion. I'm not saying that that's for everybody, but I'm saying my belief
Right.
is that that's what a democracy is, right? But the alternative system is so broken that our children are in danger either way, and that's why I think we really need to pay attention to companies like Maximus, who are at the top of the pyramid, or rather maybe the bottom of the pyramid with this system, involving the whole pyramid, I guess you could say. But they're really a
Yeah.
foundational part of all of this. And there are people, we could think that, okay, it's a big win for children to have, adoption and, CPS, and that there's these other systems. And I know kids that have been adopted that were adopted into beautiful families. I know that that does happen, but the percentage is so small, like 89% or something of all children that go into these systems end up trafficked, abused, worse. So that leaves what, 11% chance that these kids end up in a good home. That's a really small percentage and chance that we're giving these children to actually have a good life if the parent chooses to use this system as the alternative to aborting their baby. And this is a system that, I've met many parents who are going through what you have, that are dealing one-on-one personally with the CPS, foster care system, family court system, one or all of the above. And yet this company is something seldom talked about. Yet to me, they're the ones that are really, they're holding the steering wheel for everything else that's going on.
Yeah, they really are, and so there was another company that was started, not too long after, because initially Maximus had some issues because of the way they were handling child support. Um, and I discovered this maybe a year ago. Um, so they had developed a program. Um, so they started their first welfare to work contract in LA County, right? In I think 84, so 83, 84. Um, so then they got their first child support contract, I think, in either, I'd have to confirm what state, but I think it was either New Hampshire or Delaware. Now, I had to do some critical thinking about it. They were having issues. They executed the first child support contract, right? Then they went to renew, and then the state rejected their proposal because what they were doing was targeting high income parents to extract more child support, right? So the state, I'm pretty sure it was New Hampshire, but there again, I'd have to just confirm for everyone. I don't want to feed anybody any false information. It's either New Hampshire or Delaware. So the state rejected their next proposal for a contract to run the child support program because of the targeting. Because the laws didn't read as such at the time. Well, lo and behold, a few years later, they've got contracts in all 50 states. My guess, and my very well educated guess, they helped change the laws through ALEC, and all these super PACs and, all these lobbyists, the founders, connections in Washington, D.C. and everywhere else. So they had the laws written in their favor. That's almost 100% certainty on my end. Then you had another company called Policy Studies. Here just a few years ago, Maximus bought out Policy Studies. Policy Studies is now who oversees the child support contracts here. Policy Studies, or now as they're called, Veritas. It couldn't be further from the truth. It's called Veritas HHS LLC, right? So they're based in Colorado, I think Denver. So Maximus bought them out. And then they started a new company. There again, you know, the corporate divestiture, changing names to avoid liabilities. You know, they're all doing it. And in my opinion, they should all have millstones hung around their neck. You know, they really should, because they are exploiting the most innocent of us. They're exploiting the children for corporate gain. You know, it's, you know, we've touched on this, I think, in, you know, a previous interview, and just chatting in general. And like, what kind of evil people do that? Like, you know, they're looking at you with a dollar sign on your forehead. You know, you know, and this is it's modern day child sacrifice to me, because they could really care less whether or not anyone in their system lives or dies. You know, you're worth more dead than you are alive to them, in terms of the birth certificate trusts, the social security trusts, death certificates. You know, and all those get monetized. So it's an ancient system that is just, it's evil. All of it is evil. I see nothing good come of it. You know, I'm not trying to be pessimistic about it whatsoever, but you know, see the same thing happening in, you know, ancient Egypt. You know, the core groups stay the same, but the names may change. The business models pretty much are the same thing now as they were then. You know, people are slaves or chattel, human capital, you know, however you want to label it. So I think that, you know, we're just seeing a modernized version of these ancient systems. You know, by God, like it's crazy. It's insane.
Well, it's horrific, isn't it? You
Yeah.
know, to think we've been conditioned as society to believe that a judge, a court system, a justice system exists as a way to bring justice and to look at both sides and to do what's right. And the underlying causes, they only do what makes them the most money. And to them, that's what equates to right, not what's right for you, your family, your daughter, anybody else going through these systems. It's who's the vulnerable parent that will pay as much as they have to fight for their kid, and who's the parent that can help us milk this the most. We're going to place the kid with the parent that is either abusive. In some of these cases, man, just the obviousness of sexual abuse and just all kinds of horrific abuse that's happening to these kids, and they're getting full custody with that parent that abused them. And then you have the innocent parent on the other side who's literally willing to give their life in court for that child. And they know that that parent will go broke fighting for that kid. They know that that parent will pay $200 an hour for a supervised visit with their child, that they will work crazy amounts of jobs to pay their child support to the abuser, you know, or they'll fight the abuser and not pay it and then have to have a penalty. You know, they look for every way possible to monetize off of the innocent parent because they understand that psychology. Like, it's very emotional and it's very scientific what they understand about humans and how they operate and in how they're able to manipulate what they do to exploit our emotions, to exploit our vulnerabilities. So we basically hand over our paychecks and our life savings to them, you know, and they look at how can I do that the most effectively.
Yeah, and you know, I'm not embarrassed. You know, I live with my mother. You know, and I'll put that out for anybody. You know, I've got nothing to hide about it. And you're going to see that happen a lot more. Why? Because people are going to be struggling paying child support. The links that it's exactly what you said. The links these courts and you know they're not even courts. They all have Dun and Bradstreet numbers. You know, every single one of them. Even the Supreme Court has a Dun and Bradstreet number. They're all freaking businesses.
And what's Dun& Bradstreet, just for people who maybe have never heard that before?
A Dun and Bradstreet number is an identifier for a business to obtain a credit rating so they can get loans from the government. It's a business number, you know. That's what it is. You know, so in that, like when you look at the system from a banking perspective, you have judges, and they're not even judges. And what I mean by that is they're executive administrators of a bankrupt corporation, which is what the United States is, right? And this goes back to the Judiciary Act of 1789, which George Washington, who was a Freemason, signed into law. Like he created, you know, he signed the Judiciary Act. So you have all these ancient fraternal organizations supposing or proposing to the public that they're acting in the best interest of the child when they're acting in the best interest of the corporation or whatever secret society or whomever they may be protecting. You know, they're looking at us as assets and really nothing more. If they upheld the Constitution, every one of them would be in prison or would have been executed by now. Every single one of them. Guardian ad litem's, the foreign agent bar attorneys, which includes the quote unquote judges because they're all part of the bar. You know, they owe all their allegiance to first, you know, the crown, the British crown, and then if you know anything about England, it was created by the Vatican, you know, so on and so forth. Anyway, yeah, so it's you have parents just bending over backwards, doing everything they can to see their children. And these people, I wouldn't even call them people. I don't know if there's a polite word I can use on here to say what they are. They're demons. To me, they're demon possessed humans. That's the best way I can say that. So, and if you dig, and if you really dig, you will start seeing these fraternal organizations becoming emboldened in what they do in these courts. So you have, and it occurred to me just some time ago. I was like looking at dates, right? You know, so we have Roe versus Wade in '73. That same year, the DTC, which is the company that precedes the DTCC, there are two DTCCs. So the DTCC and Roe versus Wade were adjudicated, or, you know, Roe versus Wade was adjudicated in '73. The DTC, the Depository Trust Company, was founded in '73 also. So with Roe versus Wade initially being adjudicated and all these new trusts being set up, you know, through the birth certificate and through the Social Security Administration, you had to have a company like the DTC existing. So they hold the trusts, right? They hold all this stuff. You know, these documents that have been monetized, the birth certificate number, the Social Security number. So then in '75, we see Maximus being founded. So Maximus is the information collection side of the DTC. Directly related, yes and no. the thing about Maximus is the unprecedented access they have to data. Like it's outrageous. They literally have more access to databases and the databases they've created than the NSA itself. This is not me being theoretical. I can show you the documentation. They literally have access to every person in America that's at least registered. They have access to your medical records, your complete work history, complete medical records, beginning from the time you're born to the time you die. I can't reiterate how pervasive that is, you know, how pervasive they are in having this unprecedented access. That was a big part of it, you know, like, how do you just give a private organization, an NGO, non-governmental organization, you know, access to all this? It's all quite unlawful, illegal, and everything else in between. But the deeper I started digging, I was like, well, it's, you know, Maximus is like, you know, you were talking about the pyramid structure, right?
Yeah.
So you've got to, you know, we know there's a hierarchy to these things. You know, I would say Maximus is a big part of the founding of this pyramid. Otherwise, all these other top, more, you know, higher tier people, organizations that people say, oh, it's just conspiracy theory. Without Maximus, these people wouldn't be able to do what they've done for a long time, right? So then you start seeing things from the banking perspective, like I said, you know, then you start seeing countries like Sweden and Italy creep in. You start seeing Germany creep in. You start seeing the Vatican, which is subsequently who owns the military-industrial complex in the United States, because the DTCC is owned by the military arm of the Vatican, which is the Jesuit order. So
What is the Jesuit order, if that's new to people?
The Jesuit order, gosh, without giving a complete dissertation and having to rifle through my notes.
Yeah, just the overview.
It's the military arm of the Vatican, right? So, which encompasses a lot. You know, it's
and really it's its own secret society, you know. It has its own order, its own hierarchy, and works very closely and intertwines with, you know, Illuminati, occult, Freemasonry.
Exactly. You know, we have the Freemasons, Scottish Rite, blah blah blah, and all those degrees and all those different societies within the Freemasons and the Jesuit order, right? The Jesuit order is also the largest portion of the Catholic Church. You know, there's something like, what was it? So something like 30,000 Jesuits.
Wow.
Some of this stuff, I really think, you know, I need to defer to some of the links I have, you know, which, if anybody wants to find us, you know, then I can provide links, because it's just so extensive. You know, you're talking, you know, the Jesuits were founded in like, I think 1520 or something like that. So you've got you know, a 500-year history that I just cannot put together in a few sentences. Same thing, Freemasonry, and subsequently that is who's the current CEO of Maximus. He is a high-level Freemason.
Yeah, let me bring this up. Jack shared this photo with me. I don't know when that was, when the first time was that you sent this, but I couldn't, I mean, I can believe it because these people really don't hide anything. They put it all out there. We're just, I don't want to say dumb, but it's like how I was saying, you see something and it looks all nice and polished, and you see somebody being held up on a pedestal, or look at all their credentials, and you just think that they're a really highly decorated, successful, good person who's in a suit, and a lot of people don't take the time to read those fine lines and actually look at who these people are. So I'm going to bring this up and maybe you can read it. I know we'll be on YouTube and BitChute, but there'll also be people that are on iTunes and Spotify and platforms like that that don't have the same viewpoint that somebody watching it would. So I'll let you take it away and you can talk about this slide.
Okay, so I haven't been able to track down the founder's alma mater, right? Like, well, I can give some background on his education, but I couldn't find any fraternities or anything that he was in. Anyway, so the initial founder is David Master. He's the initial, he's the guy. He's the DARPA golden boy, David Vincent Mastron, and I've done some research on him and his father. Without any doubt, I'm sure they were in some of these secret societies also, but it's, the information has just not either been disseminated or it's just not there. Either way, I can't find anything about those two gentlemen. But this is the current CEO, Bruce A, or I think it's Bruce L. Caswell. I can't remember what his middle initial stands for. Anyway, so Mr. Caswell is the current CEO. And I apologize that I didn't get the complete background on this fellow. Let's see.
Okay. You can just talk about what we see right here. There's more than enough for people to understand who people are that run these companies and that sit at the top. This guy is not an anomaly. This is really, if you dig into people who own a lot of these corporations, they have very similar interests and things that they belong to, activities.
Yeah, it's like Mr. Caswell here is, just like you said, just an example, because I'm sure, even, gosh, so my grandfather was a police officer, right? That being said, your modern day police, I just don't have much faith in them. I've just seen too many abuses. Do I hate them? No. Anyway, so that's a point of contention for me. I'm sorry, I just lost my train of thought. Okay, so you have your police, right? So then you have your fraternal order of police. So within this organization, you've got other organizations. They found police gangs in many cities, many of the larger cities, in California, Arizona, and some of the other states. The pervasiveness of these societies, and it's my understanding that if you want to really move up in the ranks, even in the police, then you have to join the Masons. So Mr. Caswell is an example of that. I think that's where he had his foothold, so to speak, and really started climbing up the corporate ladder because of his involvement, right? So it says, we'll just start here at the first full paragraph. Caswell served as the supervisor for Adams Township in rural Hillsdale County for 20 years. He also served as a tax assessor in Hillsdale County for 27 years, or 22. So we know he's a bureaucrat. He's entrenched in the government for pretty much all of his career, I'm sure. A past member of the nonprofit organization 501c3, Hillsdale County Veterans Hall of Fame Incorporated. So we now know that Maximus is also running the, it's not the Veterans Administration, but it might as well be. The company they bought was, it was a $1.4 billion purchase of the company that the Veterans Administration uses for Veterans Affairs. For all their assessments is who the Veterans Administration uses. Maximus bought that company. It was quote unquote one of their long-term investments. But yeah, so now they're targeting veterans.
Wow.
So then we go down to you know, a member of the Republican Party. Bruce currently holds the post of party treasurer for Hillsdale County. That in itself should tell you a lot. You know, if you're a treasurer, you're in charge of finance and things like that. So you're overseeing the money. Always follow the money.
Always follow the money.
Yeah. So it says Bruce is also a member of the Pittsford Lion Club, Pittsford, Michigan. What is that? Leah, A. Wright, American Legion Post 53, Jonesville Rotary, Jonesville, Michigan, and the Hillsdale Masonic Lodge, number 32. Caswell is also a member of the Michigan State University Alumni Association and a lifetime member of the Michigan High School Coaches Association. So it may seem like Mr. Caswell, as well as some of the other people involved in Maximus, some of these other companies, you know, lead a life of not even anonymity, but pretty straightforward life. But it couldn't be anything other than it's. And for those of you listening, I'm sure you're all well aware. It's what goes on behind closed doors. Things that aren't released in public that are the most damning, but they all do eventually come to light. And hopefully this is shedding some light and opening some eyes. Maybe it's causing you to ask more questions than maybe receive answers for. I'm just hoping to get everybody's minds not even on the same page, but get everybody to think about what's happening, not just now, but what's led up to all this. And a big part of what you're seeing, why things are these quote unquote secret societies. And I just read something on there's a comment on I was doing some more research on the Jesuits and things like that. I don't even remember who said the comment. Of course, it was like, you know, some random YouTube handle, but it was something to the effect of, these aren't secret societies. They're just societies with secrets, which made perfect sense. So
that's a
yeah,
really
folks.
But I mean, this is really how it works. You hit the nail on the head when you said, you know, these societies work to allow people to essentially shake a hand and say, this is what I'm a part of. And it allows them the opportunity to move into roles, into positions, into companies that they otherwise would not have ever had a shot of getting into. You know, it's like a good old boys club. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. We don't tell anybody about it. Our little secret between us, let's shake on it and take an oath, and, you know, we're good to go. But that's where it gets hairy, right? Because we allow this as society to happen, and we're convinced we should idolize these people. We see the title CEO next to somebody's name, and our programming tells us that this is somebody that we need to automatically respect, not ask any questions about, and oh, they must be doing a good job. Not realizing that people like him are getting into positions simply because of the secrets that they are willing to keep, not because it's something that they earned. And when we're not addressing this, we're allowing people who do not have the wants and needs of society to be, for better lack of words, they don't have the best interests of society in their agendas. And these are the people literally running the world, are the ones that we didn't elect to be there, that are installed simply because of what they're involved in. And this is not, how we were saying earlier, this is not something that is just a one-off case, and unfortunately, it's very hard to find this information sometimes. I think too, people like him are realizing that people like us are researching this, and there's no law that says that people have to disclose if they're in a secret society. So they are able to bury this information and keep it completely confidential. And so the judge that's running the court, the lawyer that's taking your case, the person running the company that you're paying child support to, are all involved in Freemasonry or Illuminati, whatever it is, any type of these societies or all of the above. Right. And their goals are much different than the normal person's goals. Yet they've infiltrated everything. So the more we allow this and we don't call it out, the more we're going to keep seeing this, I don't even know what the word is, this corruption keep happening, because we don't have people in place that want what's best for us. We have people in place that want what's best for them.
That's exactly right. I mean, their agenda, like, let's call it what it is. They want nothing less than complete totalitarianism. They want the enslavement of the, like, they want the enslavement of the human race. That's and I would challenge anybody watching this, listening to us, like, if you believe in absolute good, however you want to label it, I call that God, I call it Christ and the Holy Spirit. If you believe in absolute good, then you have to believe in absolute evil, and I would call that Satan or Lucifer, more specifically Satan, after the fall, right? These people are members and dedicated to the latter, not the former. I think that's more than clear. This is not conspiracy theory.
Oh.
And I think that was a lot of the initial reactions I got to some of the information when I started talking about things early. No, maybe you're looking at it a little too hard, or maybe it's because of, what you've been through in courts. I'm like, no, like, flat out no. I can differ, I can set aside the trauma that I've been through, and I'm working on, always working on using what I've been through to better myself and educate people about all this. I can differentiate between that and, like, anything else that they may, people say, oh, you're not looking at it in the right way just because you're angry at the system. Yes, I am angry at the system because it was created, perpetuated, and continues to exert this force across, not just for me, but for millions of people. If you're not angry about it, then then you're in a drunken stupor or something. I don't know. So initially that was, a lot of the feedback I was getting was like, oh no, it's child support. Everybody has to go through that. Everybody has to pay child support, blah, blah, blah. I'm like, not like this. This is stuff beyond anything I knew, still know, like if anything, this has been eye-opening for me for sure. So I'm there again, I just want to help open some eyes and try to help everyone avoid these pitfalls of this system of enslavement.
And it shows how indoctrinated we are, that we so openly just accept concepts without researching them. You took the time to go back and see, okay, what year did child support start? Who started it? Why did they start it? And dissecting it. Instead, that's what I thought. Oh, everybody, like, that's just what you do, is you pay child support. I've never considered, until I met parents who were speaking out against it, the corruption and how many layers there are to child support, and that the motive isn't what we think it is, a society, of why it was created. That there's a really dark agenda behind why this was created. And then again, going back to it being a conspiracy theory that secret societies and government and corporations mingle. I had Tom Althouse has been on my podcast. He was a Freemason, and he says that very openly. It's a way to shake hands with people you don't get to shake hands with. If you're in there, you can pretty much do anything you want and, get it at the snap of a finger. It's not something you have to work towards, like how you would say in a job, you have to work for 50 years to excel in your position. No, you climb a couple, in 1 year, you climb 3 levels in Freemasonry, and you're awarded CEO of a company, and all of a sudden your bank account fills up, like, that's how this works. It's who you shake hands with, what you're willing to do, what oaths you're willing to take, what secrets you're willing to keep. That's your reward. It's not something, no matter how many degrees you have, no matter how many years you've worked, no matter how good you are, you cannot achieve what they achieve without being in one of these fraternal organizations.
Yeah, I watched some of your programs with Tom and some of your other guests. And there's always that underlying unifying fraternal organizations, and there are female organizations just as well as males. So when you really dig to the core of this stuff, that's what you find.
Right.
Just,
it's not people who went to college and got a doctorate and they're these great people and they earn a position. These are literal installations of somebody being gifted a position because they signed an oath and they climbed levels in a frat. That's what they did, was they proved that whatever the task was, that they could do it in these secret societies. That's their reward. It's not, oh, you're such a good person, look at your resume, look where you went to school, all these degrees that you have. Although that's, as society, that's what we're trained to look at. They tell us that that's how people climb. Look at their resume. I mean, you can I'll just bring this up one more time so people can see it. If you actually just read this, it looks like this person is very decorated if you don't understand what you're looking at. Wow, he's involved in all these things. I see a nonprofit on there, a tax assessor for 22 years, this, that, part of the Republican Party. He's part of this organization, Lions Club. Like, it looks like this guy just crushed it in life, and that's how he got this position. But if you actually understand how society works, the resume that we see is just a cover for, that's what they want us to think, is that a person earned where they're at by what they did in life, when in fact it's them shaking the hand of somebody, saying an oath, and most likely committing heinous crimes and being able to keep it a secret of why somebody would actually get this position.
Yeah, I mean, that's hitting the nail on the head. I mean, how do we say this? And like, you know, two of our good friends, right, that we know, um, Tennessee and Florida. How many of those people are connected to these organizations, these secret societies that have committed atrocities? Like that's, you know, it's not even bad. They're atrocious. They're evil. Um, and we're seeing the same thing. And since I guess since the beginning, you know, um, since mankind flourished, you know, somewhere thereabouts, you know, when the Tower of Babel was destroyed, you know, that's my understanding is the basis is when the Masons were created, right? You know, which predates Egypt, right? But anyway, another history lesson for another time. But yeah, you know, in regards to our friends, you know, that we're seeing these terrible things happen to the same people. A little different in methodologies, yeah. Results the same, yeah. People are dying in horrific ways. There's been, you know, investigations. Um, you know, and it would be one thing to say it's a cover up because then I think they would allude to the fact that maybe it's been investigated. But it, you know, these things aren't even investigated. They're just passed over, whatever. Um, and people are conditioned to respond to that. You know, oh, it must be okay. Um, and that goes back to the indoctrination you were talking about. Child support being one of them. You know, you know, you just walk up to your average person and you say, I have to pay child support, and they're like, oh yeah, well, my friend does too, or you know, they're in a no fault divorce. You know, this happens. That's part of that indoctrination. Um, so when you start with that indoctrination on a lower level, such as child support, well, then it builds, right? If you can brainwash somebody at that level, then you can do it at pretty much any other level. And these people are part of that. You know, there was a really good expose on ADN a couple of nights ago about the Frankfurt School, um, about the you know, the origins of you know, not so much the origins, but how Marxism was used, Marxism and things related, to influence the educational system and, you know, some of the other things here in the United States. So I've got to look into that a little more because that ties into the feminist movement, which was, you know, the Trojan horse here in the United States. That was, you know, feminism, I think, was the Trojan horse for Roe versus Wade initially, or at least part of it. I'll say part of it. So that was part of the Frankfurt School. So that, you know, there's a lot to learn. But there again, you see the same players, or at least the same fraternal organizations, as they would refer to themselves. You know, oh, we're benevolent. Yeah, you're anything other than. I mean, there's the freaking evil.
100%.
Yeah. So I guess, you know, just hopefully everybody will, you know, maybe not research it to the level that like some of us have, you know, but at least open your eyes to some of these systems that exist that they tell you don't. I don't know how else to say it. Get out of this indoctrinated thinking. If you see a system, then it started, there again, it started with, child support for me. And I'm like, well, okay, Maximus is not just some random entity. Who runs this? Who founded it? And that's slowly increased as to where we're at now about Mr. Caswell. So, same holds true for every organization, business entity, society. They always have their origins. See their influence. Sometimes it takes a while, but you will see their influence.
Have you found any other ties with Maximus to these, Freemasonry, other fraternal organizations? Is there anything else that you've kind of stumbled on, whether it's a person in the company or just the company in general and their ties to it that we didn't talk about yet?
I found direct. Okay, so I was helping some friends up in New Hampshire, right? And they were discussing, some of the corruption up there. I'm like, you guys are talking about Maximus. Is essentially what you're talking about. So we found the same corporate structure there, using the Catholic diocese. Found that same structure in Florida. We found the same structure here in Tennessee. I'm sure the same structure exists in probably just about all 50 states. The Catholic diocese in Nashville is actually a subcontractor for Maximus. So if we're talking about the Catholic diocese, we're also talking about the Vatican and the Jesuits.
Oh,
I mean, let's talk about 2 + 2. These things don't occur randomly. I think maybe when I was young and very naive, I believed in coincidence, but there's no such thing. There really is not. But yeah, so, and it's all through healthcare. That is the blanket for everything that we're seeing now. Healthcare, whether it be psychology, which would be under mental health care, whether it be women's reproductive rights, that will be under health care, Roe versus Wade, parental rights. That's the unifying, just overwhelmingly, it's all healthcare. And they use psychology, and they use this completely inverted and twisted version of spirituality, of course, through the Vatican, to warp people into believing, they're looking out for our best interests, whether they're again spiritual, mental, physical, healthcare. That's the easiest way I can say it. I mean, now we're looking at, I guess more recently, like the NIH, the WHO, World Economic Forum, World Bank, United Nations, of which United Nations is owned by the DTCC and the Jesuits, if you didn't know that. The Pentagon is also owned by the Jesuits. They're again the military arm of the Vatican. Learned that through a man named Gene Keating. I think I mentioned that to you in the conversation end, but yeah. It's just I'm not sure where I was going with that, but just tidbits of information that everybody should be aware of, that I've stumbled across.
It looks like you found, a lot of ties, the connections that you've been able to make just in general with this company, and you've been able to really find where, all their arms extend and what they have their toes dipped in and what they have their hands in. And it's really incredible, the research that you've done and that you've been able to expose, even down to looking up, people in the company and getting some background information on them. Is there anything else that you want people to know about Maximus? That you want people to know about family court or anything else involved with that you think is really important?
Stay out of family court, stay out of child support. Um, if it comes down to where you see, if you're in a relationship that's dissolving, whether you be married or not, do yourself and your spouse and your children the favor, stay out of court. You can completely use private attorneys, or even create your own written agreements between yourselves. Um, once you get into that system, you will never get out. And for the ladies who are putting men on child support, you need to look up parens patriae and loco parentis. You need to look up those two terms, because when you put yourself and your child in the system, guess what? You're relinquishing part of your own parental rights. And if you care or even cared about the child's father, don't put them on child support. Child support and supporting your child are two completely different things. You can get the monetary funding you need from the child's father without ever seeing a court. Once you're in their system, they don't like to relinquish that control very easily, and they usually won't. Just be adults, be men and women of God. Do that for yourselves, honor yourselves, and honor the Father and the Son. Honor your children, take care of them without having to have anybody prodding you. Try to avoid these pitfalls if you can, people. I've got friends, this is a little bit outside of my wheelhouse, but I've got friends that are helping others get out of the child support system. That sounds horrible until you've sat 6 months in jail. After you, like, literally the week I lost my parental rights, I went to jail for 6 months because of this alleged debt that I owed to absolutely no one on paper. That's what they do. They create a debt, make you the obligor, and put you in jail when you can't pay it, when you're already poor. Anyway, don't do that to each other. Like, that's just don't. See these pitfalls, see the system for what it is, and help yourself. You'll sleep better. I can guarantee you that. Be able to say in front of your children that you didn't do this to, whether you be the mother, you didn't do the father, and the father didn't do it to the mother, because it goes back and forth. Don't turn your children against the other one, just because you're angry that things didn't work out, or any other kind of BS, right? Don't do that. For those of you who don't have children or aren't married, be prudent with your decisions to engage in relationships and have children. And I don't think that's a mean way to say that at all. Be responsible. But if anybody wants to know more about this stuff, I'm going to be there again revamping the Maximus disclosure channel, so I'll try to take everybody from point A to where we're at now, and because this is social engineering on a global scale. That is what they did. It's social engineering, conditioning, indoctrination in every imaginable form. We're just trying to help everybody see through the BS.
How do you think we fix this? I know that it's not a simple answer. You gave some really helpful suggestions. Obviously, if we don't make ourselves customers that walk into the court, the court systems don't have, clients that they can, and children that they can traffic. But what do you think? And maybe it's not a simple answer, but what do you think could help this? What's the solution to all of this on this side of the equation with courts and with Maximus? And I mean, would taking Maximus down solve it, or does that just give power then to other companies to step in and get delegated what Maximus was doing, and it doesn't really do anything? What do you think is the way out of this?
Taking down Maximus would be just an immense first step. But Maximus is the bank that's too big to fail. If you take out Maximus, this entire country would shut down. That's how entrenched they are into the infrastructure. That being said, it wouldn't hurt my feelings. But yeah, so even before anybody gets involved in a child custody dispute, a divorce, or anything like that, start studying contract law. Start studying these laws. We know they're crooks. We know that they don't even adhere to their own rules, laws, regulations, policies. But if you don't study this stuff, you're even, it's your own fault if you don't know what they're doing. It really is your own fault. Because I went into this thinking, oh, I just tell the truth in court, things will be all right, no. So start studying what I just talked about. That way you don't have to hire an attorney to write affidavits. That way you don't have to hire an attorney to administer your estate, and that's what attorneys do. It's the estate of your person that they you're turning over the estate of your person to them to administer. Study, read all you can, but yeah, I would love to see Maximus burn. I can't put it any other way. I'd like to, yeah, complete implosion would be just wondrous.
Where is Maximus located? Do they have like an HQ, or is it more just an entity?
Yeah, it was, they just recently moved and rebranded the company.
Oh.
They kept the name and stuff in, but they changed their logo, and now they have this new mission forward.
You're talking about them. They're like, how do we look good? Jack's over there ratting us out.
Yeah, gladly so. They were based in they initially started in Reston, Virginia. Now they've moved their corporate headquarters to Tysons, Virginia, and this new immense, it's a shared building, but I would say they occupied most of the floors in this thing. Something like a 15 or 20-story building they moved their corporate headquarters to. But just to, give everybody a little purview of where they have offices, it's this is just off the top of my head: Singapore, Australia, um, South Korea, Sweden, Brazil, Canada, the United States, the complete United Kingdom, Brazil, Egypt, did I mention Sweden?
Might have, I can't remember.
Yeah, so that's, that's just it's
Ooh,
just a little purview. Like, yeah, I mean, they're transnational. They're even Italy. And here's the important thing about Italy and what they're doing in the United Kingdom. They're being funded by the European Union. So, they're regular attendees at the World Economic Forum and part of the World Bank. So, it's important to understand where they are, what they're about, how they operate. You can only destroy a system if you're on the inside. You've got to see things from the outside or from the inside out. That's that's the only way I know how to put that. Yeah, Maximus needed to be eliminated 30 years ago. Same thing for all these other agencies that are just exploiting people. The list continues. But yeah, if anybody had if there was any one takeaway from our conversation today, and it's just open your eyes, and don't be afraid to be vocal about what you know. Submit your your information. That way with people who know more than I do, or anyone. Let it be scrutinized. See how close you are. The more accurate information that we can share, the better we are off, and the better we are in knowing what angle of attack to take. But yeah, I would love to see Maximus destroyed. And even I just want to see these people held accountable for the literal crimes against humanity. They've been doing this for 45 years, just Maximus. Forget the other millennia of carnage that the Vatican and the Jesuits and all the other death cult companies have caused. I just want everybody to be more aware.
One of my biggest lessons that I've learned from you is to really be curious. I feel like I'm already very curious, but you're curious on a different level than me. That's challenged me to look at how I look at things, like I was saying, something like child support. I couldn't believe that I've heard and met so many people who have paid child support, who are paying child support, and never one time did I question the meaning of that, or the origination of that, or the intention of that. I just automatically, my brain just always thought that's just what you do. That's just what you do. And a lot of things in life I look at or was looking at that way, and I don't anymore. Things that I see all the time or that I thought were normal, now my first instinct when I am presented or reminded of information that I've known my whole life is to say why, how, who, where, when, and to actually dig into it. And that's one of the things that I hope people take away from you also, on top of all the other things, is to start asking questions, is to not just accept what is in front of you and to say, well, it's been like that since I was born. It's just how it is. Why? why are things just how they are? And
Yeah,
why don't we
yeah,
ask any questions about it and cross-check and make sure that it's a good policy that should be in place, that it was created with our best interest in mind, and that it's still functioning to this day with our best interest in mind, right? More often than not, when you look at all the systems that are put in place that involve some type of transaction, whether it's financial, whether it's labor, whatever it is, there's usually a really malicious intent behind a lot of these systems and how they work. And we're taught that it's beneficial to us, and we accept that without actually cross-checking and making sure that that information is true and accurate. And if there's other advice that I can give people, it's to look at all the little things, big things, all the nuances, everything from your own finances to how a nation or a global financial system works, to how companies operate, who's running these companies, what is the intention of these companies, what year were they formed, what else happened during that year that maybe coincided with it. Almost everything that we think is normal has a rabbit hole to it that we're very oblivious to. And if there's one thing Jack is really good at, it's deconstructing that and reverse engineering it to see and make sure that it is it is, and it functions the way that we're presented. And digging into it if it doesn't, and saying, well, why? Or I don't like this about this. Why is that this way? And I pray that people just start looking at your life with a different lens, and look at all the systems and all the companies that you see every day, that you drive by, that you hear about, that and research it and ask questions without just blindly accepting information because you've been told it a million times. I think Kathy O'Brien, she always says repetition, something along the lines of, repetition. Once we hear something so many times, it becomes a belief. It's the easiest way to mind control people, to repetitively tell them something. And knowledge is our defense against that. So understanding and asking questions gives us more knowledge and helps break down that barrier, that maybe that indoctrination, that maybe, and that spell that maybe we're under, and nobody does that better than you, Jack. You're phenomenal with just having this inquisitive curiosity and really, deconstructing and reverse engineering everything that we see and know as reality, and being able to connect the dots and show why some things work, why some things don't, and being able to explain both. So I just want to thank you for that, because I've learned that from you. You really helped me tap into my own curiosity and, to just ask more questions.
yeah. You're very welcome, man. And I think to a big degree, just about everybody has a level of empathy, right? You know, your conscience is there, which is that little voice from God. You can call it instinct, but I would say it's that little piece of God telling you, hey, pay attention. I think we all have that. I know we all have that. We're all children of God, right? So I think it's important to get out of that indoctrination and be able to turn that part of your brain back on if you're not using it.
Yes.
And I think I had to do that myself, to a large degree. I don't think we'd be here talking now if I hadn't done that. I would still be in that, like that mindset of, oh, woe is me, what am I gonna do? Well, you gotta get out of that, and you gotta quit blaming things and pointing the fingers and saying, well, why is it like this? How do I change not only this but myself? And it's been it's helped me become more aware of who I am. And it would be nice to show some people, show people how to research this stuff, but my methodology is just not probably what many people would use because I'm an artist, right? So a lot of it is word association and images. It's really hard to articulate that to some people.
I bet.
Yeah, but there are definite techniques I think that everybody can use. If you're a researcher, if you're a digger like me, maybe we can do some of that on another show. That would be nice to do, I think, sometime.
Yeah, you're always welcome on here. I'm so happy that you came on this time because I've had, like I said, a lot of people ever since you got off Twitter, especially, but even up until this day, I get people that say, "Where's Jack? What's going on with him? I tried to follow his Twitter account. It's not there. It says he's suspended. I can't find him anywhere." So I think it's refreshing for people to see that you're still around, you're still crushing it, you're still doing everything that you were doing. You're just a little bit more restricted without Twitter in helping, people find you again because you didn't really get a chance to say, "Hey, I'm getting kicked off Twitter. Come find me here." Twitter just kicked you off and won't let you back on. So a lot of people probably really miss you. And I know I do. Twitter isn't the same without you and some of the other people that are no longer on that platform. Where all are you? You mentioned Facebook. Are you, obviously for, we talked about Telegram. Jack is in our Standby Survivors page. You can literally find him through, it'll give you a list of everybody in there and he posts, so you can literally click on his name and go send him a message. But for people who maybe aren't on Telegram or other ways, and maybe if you just want to go over again all the Telegram pages that you're in, and everywhere else that people can find you, that would be really helpful for everybody who can't follow you on Twitter.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I want to punch Jack Dorsey so hard.
Or Elon Musk now.
Yeah, him too. Him and his boring company or whatever. Anyway, yeah, so I've got like 2 Facebook profiles. Either one of them you can find me there. The Telegram, your channel, and the Ricky Leaks channel, the American Digital News channel. It's your channel, Ricky, and ADN that I'm on most often.
Are you on the Save the Children channel?
Yeah, I think Pamela. Yeah, I think Pamela has left that channel.
Gotcha.
She's pretty much the top admin, with the exception of Emma Till, who is the founder of ADN. She's helping support the ADN channel. But yeah, just in general, you can find me on Telegram and message me regardless of the channels, right? But yeah, it's your channel, Standby Survivors, Ricky, ADN. There's a bunch of other channels I'm part of. I just don't interact with them. It's just more or less just kind of pop in and see what's happening.
Yeah.
I can find stuff, right?
Yep.
And then there is, let's see what else.
You're on Instagram. I know you said you use that mostly for art, but what is your Instagram handle for people who want to go support your artwork and maybe just check out what you're doing on that front?
So it's just Jack Pendergrass artist, like in terms of like my creativity.
You're so talented.
Say again.
I said you're so talented. Your art is amazing.
Oh, thank you. I'm just not really creative when it comes to titles, right? It's not something fancy. It's just my name, artist. Keep it simple.
Keep it simple.
Yeah. And then I think, if anybody is like looking for documentation or documents, or I've got a lot of information, just kind of laying around in different files, right? And some of that stuff is I don't want to disrespect anyone, but some of it's a little upper level for for the researchers, for the diggers. Um, because we're all at different levels of learning, right? I'm not saying that I'm like upper tier by any means, because there are people way more intelligent than I am doing this stuff. But if you need information, looking for information, hit me up and I'll be glad to share either my email or send you, PDFs on whatever it is I have. And Telegram has also got some great resources too. So maybe I can send people to, your channel's been amazing, and for for RSA, you've had just a tremendous panel of people on there. Survivors are great. Ricky's got a lot of real intelligent people, as well as ADN. So whatever level you may be at, if you're just entering into this stuff, or you're intermediate, or maybe a little above that, message us. Not just myself, but Emma and the folks at Ricky. One thing I like to think we all are is very accommodating and passionate, and we listen to people. So I like to think that's what kind of sets us apart. We really care. We care. And it's not to be cliche. We care. To me, that's a big part of what's happened, is people stop caring. They kind of got lost along the way. So that's how you can contact me, and contact Emma. So yeah.
Well, I'll have all of that linked below so people can just go click on it. I'll have Jack's email. That way, if you guys want to reach out to him that way, if say you don't have Telegram, or if you don't have access to some of these other ways. And I definitely encourage you to go support Jack. He's a wealth of knowledge. He is posting in a lot of channels, so you guys can go ahead and indulge with that. And I hope that you get your Telegram page back up, because I think that concept sounds so cool, about kind of just walking people through the start to right now, and giving people that full story, because it's such a big pill to swallow, putting all this together. And you've just done an incredible job doing it. And we're all so lucky that you are contributing and helping. And it's an honor to have you on my channel, and all the things that you post, and just all the things that you've taught me. And I'm so grateful that you came on here today, Jack. You're such a breath of fresh air, and you're one of my favorite humans in the whole world. And I'm grateful that, meeting you on Twitter led to such a great friendship that I'm really thankful that I have in my life. So just thank you so much for taking the time out to be on here today.
Yeah, Emma, I couldn't be happier. The friendship we've built, and trust, and that we've established, has just been wonderful. Because for a long time, I think I was like, oh, social media, blah blah blah. It's no, it has its uses if you you can build relationships and end up meeting great people. So yeah, thank you for once again having me, and it's always a pleasure.
It's my honor, Jack. And for everybody listening, I hope you guys took some notes. If you didn't, go back and listen. I'm going to link Jack's first podcast interview testimony below too, so you guys can go ahead and find him there, and I'll create a playlist. That way both the episodes are there for him. Hope to definitely have you on again, Jack, and hopefully not wait as long as we did between these two episodes. You're such a wealth of knowledge, and you're just a dear friend to me, and somebody that has so much to contribute. And I just love getting any time that I can to converse with you and learn from you. So thank you, Jack, for coming on. Thank you guys for listening and supporting. It means the world to me. And God bless you all. And we will see you next week.